When I was in there, we had somebody, they were trying to sample the VX with M8 paper, which for those who don't know is just a paper that will change color based upon what agent is exposed to. And he bent down to take a knee, and the instructors grabbed him so fast.
Welcome to the Oakville Podcast. Today I have Dan here with me. He's going to talk about chemical bullet. So here we go.
Great to be here, Josh. Thanks for having me.
All right. So can you tell me what the length and location of Chem-BOLC was?
So C-BOLC is going to, well, we call it C-BOLC or Chem-BOLC, whichever you prefer. It's about 17 weeks long, and it's located at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Interesting. Is that a TDY or a PCS?
So it kind of depends. I was OCS, and so they usually send OCS people there at least, I would say 3 or 4 months early, so you'll be PCS, and you'll get to live off post, which is pretty nice. However, if you're ROTC, you'll probably be TDY and staying in the hotel, Candlewood Suites.
Okay, so then if you do PCS because you're coming from OCS, you're getting BAH, right?
Oh yes, you'll get BAH
compared to TDY not getting the BAH.
Correct.
But the TDY will get per diem.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So did you know what duty station you were going to get before you got to BOLC?
That's a good question. I think it depended somewhat on exactly how your commissioning source was, but I think most of us found out approximately halfway through the course.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. So that's similar to like combat arms, how we found out halfway through the course as well. While my friend Alex, he went to the logistics BOLC, and he knew where he was going, all that stuff.
Oh, really?
Like before he even graduated ROTC.
Lucky him.
Yeah.
That's pretty all right, yeah.
Up next, we're going to talk about some of the phases and what they consist of. So walk me through, there's a bunch of modules from the notes we have. It's mod A through mod M. I'll post like a little graphic thing kind of showing, going into detail of like what all the mods are. But can you just like start talking and walking through each of the mods A through M?
Sure thing. So as Josh said, there's quite a few mods, probably the most mods of any BOLC I know of. Mod A is going to be primarily just admin, PowerPoint, BRM, stuff like that, just general knowledge. Then once you start moving into, mod A through mod E are primarily admin, PowerPoint, and you'll also do BRM during that time period. Once you get to mod F is when you really start covering more of the specific CBRN knowledge. Now, mod F is hazmat. It's arguably one of the hardest mods in all of C-BOLC, and it has the most recycles.
Oh, wow.
The reason behind this is because what you cover in there is very specific knowledge about different types of containers, different types of trucks and transport methods for different chemicals and all these other things. You learn about, just in general, hazardous materials awareness, operations, and technician. And at the end of that mod, you actually are certified DOD in hazmat awareness, materials, and technician, which are good certs you can take into the civilian world. Another highlight of mod F would be you get to be in level A and level B suits and do kind of a mock hazmat response type incident with an incident command setup as well.
Oh, kind of like FEMA.
Yes, exactly.
Incident command and natural disaster relief, stuff like that. Just a quick note before we move on. The order of these mods may change just based on how the TRADOC kind of mixes and matches or takes things out, puts things in, or rearranges it. So it might be a little bit different by the time you get to BOLC, but this is going to be Dan's experience. So moving on to mod Golf.
So mod Golf is going to be your chemical defense mod. That's when you learn about the different types of chemical agents. You'll learn about the different, Class G, sarin, all these other different chemical agents, how they were developed, how they were originally used. And you'll learn about the Chemical Weapons Prohibition Convention and other things in that nature.
Okay.
Just general chemical knowledge.
And then do they go over any like case study times like in real life where these things were used on local populations?
They do very briefly. I wouldn't say we go in depth in that, but there are some examples like, of course, we talk about chlorine gas in World War I and other things like that. Mod Hotel, Decon, this is the meat and potatoes of the CBRN world. You'll go through the various types of decontamination, thorough decontamination, broken down into detailed equipment decontamination and detailed troop decontamination. And that's pretty much the cornerstone of C-BOLC in general because your capstone exercise is directly related to that.
Oh, cool. Okay. Interesting. And then what's next?
So next is going to be biological defense. That's when you cover, it's very similar to chemical defense. You cover the biological agents that exist and how to detect them, how to decon them, etc. It's almost structured the exact same way as the Chem-BOLC. Basic radiation. This is one that most people do not care for because it's a little bit dry. It's a lot of math. It's a lot of conversions between different units. There are so many different units for radiation and dosage and all these things. So people have trouble with it. It's not difficult. It's just kind of dry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then we get to Mod Kilo, nuclear defense. Is that one not as dry?
So nuclear defense, I thought was pretty interesting. Other people were starting to get a little burned out by that point, but it's interesting. You get to learn about the different types of nuclear weapons, not in any great detail, of course. You learn about the types of nuclear reactions that can occur, and also you learn how a nuclear reactor works, which is pretty interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is any of that discussion, because it's nuclear, is any of that at the secret level? Do you have to like go to a SCIF to talk about it, or is it all unclassified?
No, so you're right. Most of it will be unclassified. There was no secret portion of that brief. Yeah. So seaborne recon entails learning about how mounted seaborne reconnaissance is done. For people that don't know, it's with an NBCRV, which is an adapted striker. Yeah. With different seaborne detection equipment mounted on it, and it's how you mark lanes and designate contaminated areas.
Yeah, so I had 3 of these at the battalion that I was with.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a BEB, and with that engineer battalion, we had a Seaborne Recon platoon. They were at the headquarters.
Right.
They had 3 of those strikers, and at any given time, like at least 2 of them were broken down. They were all pacing items too, and like every single week we had to brief why they were down and like what we were doing to fix them because they were like high value.
Yeah, pretty typical experience, unfortunately, but.
And then you have the final mod after that, which is the capstone event.
Right. So the capstone event is really not difficult. It's basically you're going to do a sand table brief followed by setting up a thorough decontamination with detailed equipment decon and detailed troop decon. It's very easy. It's not very difficult.
That's pretty much what the phases are, the mods, I guess. Now we're going to get like kind of a little deeper into it, but did you get to play with any like live agents, or I know I've heard rumors about being like exposed to some stuff. What happened?
The $1 million question. Yes. So arguably probably the most exciting part of C-BOLC is the live agent training that you get to do at the CDTF facility. Basically you go in there and you're in a JS list suit and you're exposed to VX agent, and you're basically meant to sample it in a mock environment.
So what is VX for those that don't know?
So VX is a nerve agent, and basically it'll kill you very fast, just to be succinct.
So what are some of the symptoms that you might observe if someone's like suit got a tear, or they took a knee or something? Like,
so actually that reminds me of a story, Josh. But when I was in there, we had somebody. They were trying to sample the VX with M8 paper, which for those who don't know is just a paper that will change color based upon what agent is exposed to. And he bent down to take a knee, and the instructors grabbed him so fast, took him out of there, took him to decon in a lightning flash.
So was it brief? You're not allowed to like touch the ground or do whatever, like what's off limits to do? I don't know.
It was very strict. They definitely tell you do not take a knee, do not get too close to the agent. You don't want to be tripping all over yourself and falling face first into a thing of VX because it's pretty serious. But yeah, it was a great experience. A little bit more about the CDTF. It's quite a nice facility. Inside, they have different mock environments that, there's a simulated weapons storage facility. There's a simulated subway attack scenario that provides for some pretty good training.
Cool. Did you have to go through like the actual gas chamber and all that stuff too? Or
we did, and that was, it's kind of like a rite of passage for anybody that's Seaborne.
It wasn't VX or nothing. But...
No, it was just CS gas. It makes you a little snotty, but
it clears the sinuses.
Absolutely, you feel great after it. It's true.
So what kind of follow-on courses can you get after C-BOLC?
So follow-on courses they were kind of a little hot button issue for my class. Basically, when I was going through, they started to make it more difficult for lieutenants going through to get follow-on courses, and unless something's changed, it's very unlikely that anyone going through C-BOLC will get a follow-on course.
Okay, so it might just depend on the unit that you get to and if they want you to get any additional certifications or courses.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Do you have any advice for second lieutenants that are about to go to C-BOLC?
That's a good question. So I would say, just before I get into more specific advice, just kind of general advice, show up in shape. Being inside a JS-less suit and even inside a level A or level B suit, it's very hot. You'll sweat a lot. And if you're not in shape, you do not want to be the guy that or gal that passes out, because it's very embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll look foolish. And also, if you heat cat inside a suit, you're kind of kicking yourself, because you can't do your job if you can't wear a suit. So.
Yeah, that reminds me of back before I commissioned, I was enlisted in military police, and our mission, one of the missions we had was natural disaster relief, and we had the SURF-P, the HERF mission.
Oh, right.
So we did a lot of like FEMA training and stuff in the suits. We'd be out in like the California summer, out in the desert, in one of those suits, and by the end of, we only worked like 1 hour at a time, because like we would heat cat if it went too far. I'd drink like an entire Camelback in that hour, and then I would sweat so much that when I took my boots off, I would literally like dump sweat out of the boots. I'd have to take the gloves off and have them like inside out, so that when the sweat dries, like you could wipe all the salt off of it. Yeah, pretty good experience, but just little things to look forward to. Because in Missouri, it's hot and humid already, and then inside of a suit, you're basically like in a walking sauna.
If you're there in the summer, yeah, definitely drink water and show up in shape, because you will be sweating.
And electrolytes.
And electrolytes. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for soldiers that are forced into chemical, like if it wasn't their number one branch choice? Right,
and that's a pretty common thing. I would say we had quite a few people who were, kind of reluctant to be part of the chemical corps. And my best advice to them is just, go in with a good attitude. It's not that bad. Nothing could be that bad. All the stories and the horror stories people get. Yeah, CBURN it's a different branch than I'd say quite a few of the other branches, but go in with a good attitude and you can have a fantastic experience, and you can make the most of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of like you get out of it what you put into it.
Exactly. Yep.
Nice. Another thing that I would say is just like, if you end up going chemical and you didn't want to, just do the course, get the certifications, because that'll help you later in life, and then look into V-tipping as soon as you're eligible. So like, you're not forced to stay 20 years in the chemical branch. Like, you can just do what you got to do and then look into V-tipping.
Exactly. Oh, and then one other thing, if anyone's looking for an interesting book recommendation, they recommend this to you when you're in the course, and but I'd recommend reading it before, just in case you want to get some general CBURN knowledge. The book Biohazard by Ken Alibek. Ken Alibek is a former, or I guess was a former Soviet bioweapons program manager, and he wrote a book about his experiences at one of the Soviet bioweapons production facilities. It's pretty interesting to read about.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll put a link down in the description below if they want to like find that. All right, so up next, can you talk to me a little bit about like the jobs you can have as a CBURN officer coming out of BOLC?
Right. So as a CBURN officer, you can have several jobs. I was lucky enough to go to a CBURN battalion in Korea, where the CBURN mission is very real. And so we get to actually use a lot of the skills that we learn at BOLC. If you go to a CBURN battalion, you can expect to be possibly a hazard assessment platoon leader, which is basically dismounted decontamination and recon. You can go to a CBURN reconnaissance platoon. That would be basically the MBCRV type reconnaissance we talked about earlier in the video. Or, of course, you might end up on battalion staff, probably in the S3, and, doing S3 things.
I mean, that's similar to basic any lieutenants. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Very similar.
I don't know how much experience you had. Like you said, you were in that CBURN battalion in Korea. Do you have an experience with like those recon platoons, like in the BEB or with the MVCRVs?
So I don't have too much experience, no, with any recon platoons in the BEB.
So the way we used them, they would either go out with the scouts and then kind of just be on that screen, try to detect any agents like airborne or whatever. Just, I don't know like how the sensors work. I just know they like sniff stuff.
Pretty much.
And then basically they would like radio back what's kind of the limits because they wouldn't all be together. They'd be like spread out, and then like maybe one picks it up, and another one drives over and like senses again. Once they figure out how far the thing is spread and like the wind direction, all that kind of stuff, you would then transfer to your alternate, like your clean route, dirty route. You'd probably like get out of that screen. The scouts would then move. Most likely, it all depends on unit SOP. So at this point, I'm kind of just guessing what they would do. But it's a pretty cool job as long as your equipment works.
Right. And actually, something I just thought of, speaking of that, if you are going to be a recon platoon leader, your BOLC experience will not really prepare you for that. We talk about recon, but it's a PowerPoint, and we don't really get into the nitty gritty of it. So just be prepared for a bit of an adjustment. C-BOLC is more tailored to make you like a CBRN battalion chemical officer or a decon platoon leader.
Cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
So are there any kind of like civilian skills or applications that you'll get out of C-BOLC?
Yeah, so as I think I talked about a little bit earlier, you get the DoD Hazmat Technician Operations and Awareness Certificates. Those are very, very useful. You can use those certificates basically in the civilian world, you can become a firefighter just with those certificates alone, which appeals to a lot of people. You can also use those certificates in the Emergency Operations Center that your state or federal level may have. Those are something that they look for too.
Yeah, and then earlier I said that I was military police and I'd worked with the CERF-P and all the chemical stuff. I came out with like a bunch of different certifications. I even got Pro Board certified, and I can use this if I wanted to be a firefighter or like. Even if I wanted to like VTIP CBRN, I'm sure they would think that's pretty cool. But.
Oh, they would take you. And then another course I'd just recommend, has nothing to do with BOLC, but if you are a CBRN officer and kind of wanting to increase your knowledge of how CBRN fits into the wider operations picture, or even for non-CBRN officers, the CWMD Advisor course is an excellent course to take. You learn kind of how CBRN is incorporated into the wider countering weapons of mass destruction enterprise. So. Right. So I think something I will talk about a little bit more is the kind of physical requirements at C-BOLC. Something that I think people were not really prepared for was our 12-mile ruck at Fort Leonard Wood. It's a little bit hilly at Fort Leonard Wood, and our 12-mile ruck course was actually a little bit challenging. And we did the 12-mile ruck right into carrying logs, like immediately at the end of that.
Oh, wow.
All the way to the CBRN Memorial Grove. So that was actually pretty challenging. Aside from that, any ACFT type thing, I believe we took it at the beginning and the end, and no one had any issues passing.
So. Two ACFTs?
Yes, beginning and the end. Now, that might have changed since I went through BOLC. But.
So, Dan, can you tell me a little bit more about the different suits that you'll end up wearing, like kind of pros and cons of each, or just their differences in general?
Sure, Josh. So there's a couple levels. First, of course, you have your JS list, your MOP gear. That's considered, I believe, a level C. So it's one of the lower protection levels, but you'll spend quite a bit of time in that during the capstone exercise. However, the other kind of more technical suits you'll be using during the hazmat block. And these are the suits that are arguably harder to be in because you're fully encapsulated. Mm-hmm. So the level A suit is a fully encapsulated suit, meaning that you have a breathing apparatus, an SCBA, and you're inside a plastic bubble of a suit, and you're completely taped in there with chem tape. Mm-hmm. Basically, every time you sweat, it will just stay in the suit. There's nowhere for that sweat to evaporate, and it's very, very hot. You can only stay in the suit for so long.
Yeah, and is it true you have to be cut out of these? So they're like one-time wear suits?
So, yes, you do have to be cut out of these suits because once you're taped in, the only way to get you out is to slice into the suit.
Yeah.
And something else on that, before we even could wear those suits, we had to actually get a medical checkup by the doctors. So that's something to keep in mind.
So did you guys like practice with paper suits or like very thin, like easily like throwaway suits before getting into those more like I'm assuming they're more expensive, so they probably wouldn't just like have everyone go straight to the expensive stuff. Did they have that kind of like crawl, walk, run build up?
Oh yeah, so really all the suits that you'll be using during the hazmat block they're either going to be old suits that are decommissioned because the suits actually do expire, or they were training suits that didn't really have any real protective value but kind of simulated the same conditions.
Okay, so you say like the mop gear and all that might not has the limited protection, might not protect you against things specifically like radiation, I'm guessing.
Well, it will to a point, depending upon the type of radiation.
Okay.
That's a bit more of a technical discussion, but basically the protection afforded by the level A and even the level B compared to a mop gear type suit is that you're sealed in there. So if there were, say,
Like alpha particles.
yeah, alpha particles, or even like, a biological agent can get through your JS list, depending upon, if you don't secure your neck area, or if, your gloves aren't necessarily going to be taped. So it depends.
Okay, the reason I bring that up is because like the rest of us across the Army, we get issued JS list, mop gear, and then they basically make it seem like we're going to be fighting, when the nukes are flying, or like, how long would you be able to, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do those JS list mop gear like actually do anything, or does it just like, I guess what I'm asking is, why do we get the lowest level suits that offer not so good protection?
Right. So I think specifically you're talking about in a nuclear situation.
Yes.
Right. So the reason being, if you're in a JS list, it's difficult, but you can still kind of fight, even though like the intention, I mean, obviously with those mop gloves, you're not going to be very combat effective.
Right.
But if you're in a level A suit, which is basically a plastic bubble, you're not fighting anybody. So basically the reason that we have mop gear is because it's slightly more operable than, say, a level A suit. And moreover, even mop gear is not intended, I don't think they intend anyone to go fight a war in mop gear. It's more of a protective measure.
So that's the C-BOLC experience in a nutshell. If you found this helpful, then let us know by giving this video a like. And if you're not sure what branch you're getting, or you want to see other BOLC experiences, then click on this playlist I got right here.